I'm Harvey Smith, co-creative director of Dishonored at Arcane Studios. Dishonored, you are a supernatural assassin in a steampunk city. The embedded narrative is that you are Corvo Atano, bodyguard to the Empress, who's falsely accused of her murder. You know, you encounter a supernatural figure who's God and the devil rolled into one. Dishonored is not on Earth, it's its own cosmology. It's got its own government and religion and mythology and its own calendar and its own animals. And in general, our team is looking for something more novel, and we started with London in 1666. The art team did a bunch of research in Edinburgh and London, but over time we kept adding fantastic elements like magic. We have these whales in the world with long tentacles from their face their oil is the source of technology and an industrial revolution, an alternative industrial revolution. And so we just kept adding elements and modernizing it a little bit, and we realized eventually, well, the world looks like an American whaling city in the 1850s. Looks a bit like Victorian London, but it's not really. It's its own universe. It's the Empire of the Isles, are like 4 island nations in a tiny little pocket of civilization in a vast hostile ocean. That's the way they see it, is that the whole universe is hostile toward them. And so we realized eventually we had created our own world, and it takes place in the city of Dunwall. Dunwall is in the middle of a terrible plague where 50% of the population have been killed, and most of the people are starving, or they're trying to get the elixir. There are 2 rival brands of elixirs. One is Sokolov's health elixir, and the other is Piero's spiritual remedy. And those 2 elixirs are said to fight off the plague. If you drink it every day, it will keep you from dying of the plague. And so we show a world where the poor have just been decimated. You know, and the aristocrats, meanwhile, are incredibly decadent. They have thousands of times more wealth than the average person, and they're holding parties in the middle of the terrible plague. Some of them are even profiting from the plague. So there's definitely a sense of massive wealth inequality that's just part of the background. The world is very dark and grim to begin with. Yeah, so one of the things we've got going on here is that you can take many different pathways through the map, and you can use stealth or combat, and you can use very brutal violence or literally non-lethal, like choking and sleep darts or avoiding. And then on top of that, our AI is variable. So a guard is part of a squad of 3 guys, and there are 5 patrol routes. If he sees that a patrol route hasn't been patrolled in a while, he might switch. If he walks past the fireplace, dynamically he might decide to warm his hands, or he might not. So there's variability in the AI too. You take all these things and treat them like a matrix, then your pathway through the game is very different than mine. It's maybe you went this way, maybe I went through the window. You have these powers, I have those powers. You're fighting, I'm sneaking. You're very violent, I'm not violent. You know, the AI happened to be here when I went through the room. It happened to be over there admiring a painting on the wall. You bumped a bottle in it, and it crashed on the floor, and the guard heard it down the hall and came to explore it. So there's all this variability. So first of all, that is what games should be, I think. They should not be a trail of breadcrumbs or some scripting where it always works the same way. They should be variable and allow for improvisation and strategic play. So first of all, just from that standpoint, just in and of itself, that's play, and we want that. That's the main reason, right? Further, though, there are consequences. Like, we have a thing called the chaos system. So the more people you kill, especially innocents, the higher the chaos score. And then when you go into the next mission, it checks the chaos score, and there are more rats, more weepers, or people infected with the plague. There are different lines of dialogue. There's small scenes that play out one way or the other. And then the end games are different. There are 2 major branches of end games with variations of each one. And then there are also achievements and trophies on Steam or Xbox or PlayStation for doing it one way or the other, ghosting the game or not killing anyone, or, you know, that sort of thing. I think the main reason people will find Dishonored interesting is that it reflects the way you play. You really can approach it your own way, and you really can improvise. You can solve a problem in a way we never predicted by combining these consistent powers. You know, that is not very common in games. Also, I guess the novel world, it's got the best art of any game I've ever worked on, and the world design is, the world feels much larger than it actually is in the game, you know, so it's very moody and atmospheric, and it's a novel experience. It's not something that you've ever seen before. It's not another soldier game or whatever, you know, it's very different, and so I think those are compelling reasons for finding it interesting. In Europe, the release date is October 12th, and it's Steam, Games for Windows, but not Games for Windows Live. It's Xbox 360 and PS3.